And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon today. I am talking with Joe Rockey. Now, Joe, first of all, thank you, sir. Thank you for spending some time and being my guest today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show. I love being on podcasts and helping sharing the message that sales will heal the world.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to dive into that because I think, well, sales has such a bad connotation too many times. People don't understand it and they don't understand, they've never figured out how to do it. And I know that's what you help people do. So I want to take a deep dive into this in the time that we had together. Tell me, um, Joe, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
So I have been on the commission lifestyle since I was 16 years old.
Okay.
As a salesperson, I love the fact that I can sell, and I was making way more money than all of my peers at the time. And quite frankly, I was able to control my schedule, something that none of else would be able to do because they're working all hourly rates, basically getting minimum wage at 16. And I fell in love with it. Now, granted, there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of reasons why the sales industry has the biggest turnover of any industry.
Yeah.
And I do want to point that out, that the sales industry is its own industry. It is intertwined with every company in the world, but it is its own industry. And I say that because you have to treat it as such, because you can be doing whatever your profession is, being an author, being a ghostwriter, and that has its own individual challenges specifically to the way you write, how to use comma structure, all that fun stuff that you know way more about than I ever will. But being in the world of sales, which every business needs, is a completely different set of problems that really has nothing to do with grammar. So when you look at it, it's a completely different world. And most business owners enter in with knowing what their awesome product or service is. I know how to make amazing pizza. I can make great bread. I have no idea how to sell it. So what do? We resort back to way it always been, what's always happened. And I have to tell you that the 1960s left us a lot of horrible things, and one of the worst of which is its sales method, which essentially every person listening can conjure up in their mind. It's the used carsman. You're not getting off this lot unless you buy the car I want you to. It's
Yeah.
the cold caller. I'm going to keep pestering you until you give me an appointment. That is the essence of the 1960s sales method. It is horrendous. And it is something that if you look at the evolution of the way people buy, it's really to get away from that notion. A salesperson is just going to grab you and use you and take advantage of you. And we're all afraid of that.
Yeah.
And think back to anyone who's listening to your childhood. Who was the only people you were allowed to lie to and oftentimes encouraged lie to? Salespeople. Oh, I'm not here on this lot to buy a car. I just
Yeah.
randomly go here on Sundays afternoons to bake on a sheet of asphalt and look at things. It's a
That's
fun
right.
hobby of mine.
Yeah.
No, I mean, come on. I mean, that's how every person is trained. So why do you have all this turnover?
Yeah.
Because people in the long run are good. Not to get in a whole philosophical argument, but it's a fact. So when you look at this, it is very hard to look yourself in the mirror long term if you're in a system where I'm expected to grab people and use them for my own personal benefit. And that is the crux and the root of why sales are done wrong, why there's so much turnover, and the problem with it. And there are so many derivatives and subsets that literally I can talk for days about this. So we can go in any direction you want, but that is the starting crux and root that 1960s, this is how we always done it, is still prevalent and growing today. You get an MBA from Harvard today and be taught this same crap and how it's
Right.
destroying the world.
Yep.
So that's a
Absolutely.
fact.
Yeah. So you said a number of things there that I want people to rewind and go and just go listen to that few minutes that Joe just talked, because there were a lot of nuggets there. Here's one of them that really stuck out at me is, no, doesn't matter what you're, if you're an attorney or financial advisor, you know what you do. You're an expert there. But I find business owners struggle with really coming out of that two other things. One, marketing, and
Mm-hmm.
two, sales, because they're really different animals. Joe Polish is one of my favorite, marketing guys and business owners. And he said, and I love your perspective on this. He says, marketing is what you do to get face to face with a person.
Mm-hmm.
Selling is what you do when you are face to face with somebody. So
Mm-hmm.
I work a lot with marketing and all of that, but selling is a different animal. You're right. It's a whole different industry. Let's talk about, I mean, yeah, we have all these misconceptions. And when I tell people about marketing, I'm like, just talk like you talk. Don't try to use, and I think the same thing happens in selling too, right? It's just like sell to somebody like you'd want to be sold to, which is different, right?
Yes. So first off, very good at nailing the difference between marketing and sales. I love it. And from the business owner's perspective, you need to look at the entire revenue chain, which in simple blocks is marketing, sales, product. If you just think of it in those three basic things, again, most businesses got the product side down.
Yeah,
And to start with the core, I'll get into the sales part. I don't want to ignore that.
sure.
But the problem that so many places have, whether you are doing this via outsourcing it or internally, is that your groups, your marketing, sales, and product become on their own little islands, their own little silos, and they're not really working together.
Yes.
So it really starts with the prospect has no idea who we are. How do we get them to come to us, have a desire to see us, marketing, as you said there. But what we need to make sure is we're not just getting anyone. We
Yeah.
need to get the right ones, because it's a very easy system to see, and many businesses fall into this, is that the marketing people are giving us some leads. The salespeople need to convert them for the sake of their job. So they just do whatever it takes. And then the product is like, that's not what we do.
Right.
Well, and then you have post product sales forever. So really, you have to start at the very origin of the problem, which is getting the wrong leads. And this is something that when I was mentioning Harvard is telling you the wrong way,
Right.
this is exactly the starting point of it. You are not a politician. You should not care about demographics at all. What people look, smell, taste like, all that, none of that matters. What matters is strictly one thing. What does your product solve, and where do people go to look for it?
Yep.
What they look like, what they are, doesn't matter. Every politician cares about it because they don't actually solve a problem. So they care about getting this demographic or that demographic. You're a business that makes a difference. So what is the problem you solve? In your case, people don't have enough notoriety. I want to give them more authority by having an amazing book. So who actually needs that problem solved? People who need authority, that think they already got it and they need help. That's completely different than just looking for men in their late 50s that might own a business. No, it's a completely different model in the way you look at it. And if you take one thing away from this conversation, even though I'm here about sales, it's that. Focus your product on the problem you actually solve, and don't care about the demographics of the person behind it.
Amen.
So many marketing people, 90+% of them, and that's being generous, have no idea that that's how it really works.
Yeah.
But they'll go and they'll make a website for you. They'll go and they'll make an ad campaign for you. They'll make a bunch of JPEGs and all the rest of it, and then blanket the social medias. And all that is wide mass canvassing. You're going to get a ton of hay into your sales department. And like most sales department, they're compensated based upon results, whether it be commission directly or bonus system, whatever. They have to produce. And as the business owner, you need them to produce. So they should be compensated that way. Actually, all of your employees should be compensated that way, but this isn't about the management side. Nonetheless, they're going to convert this hay. And unless your goal is to make mulch or give it to cows and manure, you don't want hay. You want actual results. And that's why you have to start there. So to get now into your answer here about sales and talking to people about the real way, you're exactly right. Because we live in a world that, again, the base standpoint is I'm supposed to lie to salespeople. They're going to take advantage of me. They're going to use me. But it is also shown that when there's a meaningful purchase in my life, I want to talk to someone.
Yes.
And this is why you saw the rush to eBay and then Amazon, because I didn't want to get used. As a consumer, I can at least go here. I'm not going to get a negative experience. We get a neutral experience at best, but it's not going to be overtly negative. So as a consumer, I go to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's a meaningful purchase, I want to talk to someone, which is why, if you think about this, you've never seen a successful online jewelry store.
That is exactly where I was going. You're right.
That's exactly it. You go to meaningful purchases, you want to talk to people. So now the challenge then becomes, as a business owner, am I meaningful? Because if I'm not, I can just go online and be another commodity on Amazon, where I'm on Target, I'm on Amazon, I'm on Walmart, and the only real competitive advantage those marketplaces have to fight over me is dropping my price and making me less meaningful.
Right.
Or option two, I can train a sales force to make me meaningful and make me stand out.
Right.
That's really your choice as a business owner. Most people don't realize that's the choice they're making, but from the consumer standpoint, that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so much. And when you're a small to medium sized business and you're out there slugging it out, what we're talking about is the game changer, because people want to build relationships. They want to know that I'm safe, especially when they're making, I love how you said, the meaningful purchases, whether that's a CRM system, whether that's, an estate plan for your family, a financial plan, whatever. Can you get those online? Well, absolutely. Are they worthy? Yeah, probably not. That's why you need somebody to talk to. Now, let's drive into that. So estate planning attorney, right? They went to law school. They know all about the law. They might have some marketing, but selling is like they don't have a clue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time. What are some of the ways that you help them kind of diffuse that of prospects coming in and change the game? Because I know you've got a different approach to selling and how to do it better, really.
Mm-hmm. So let me start with the kind of myth that's out there first, because I think
Sure.
it will help illuminate it a little bit better. Because you are right. You're 100% right about that. Is you can look across the internet, just like you could have for estate planning. You can go and find LegalZoom and you can get anything of paperwork you want. It doesn't mean you know what it means or if it's the right tool for the situation, but you can get it for a reasonable price, much cheaper than you would with a customized attorney. In the world of sales, it's the same thing. You can go online and see someone's 7-point plan, their 5-step solution, all of this different thing. And I want to give you an analogy that might be dating myself, but think about back when you were in high school and that skeleton was hanging on the wall in biology class.
Hmm.
In some circumstances, depending upon what school you were in, it was a full intact skeleton, all the finger bones and everything. Some of them, the pins dried out, and there's bones all over the floor and or they disappeared. That's kind of what a sales system is. When it's in the right situation, it looks great, but it's only going to look great in that situation. What you need to do is be able to put flesh on it so it actually can be adapted to all situations, which is why when you think of your human body, yeah, sure, I got skeletons in me. There's parts of me that keep me upright so I can look at you and talk, but it really works because I have the flesh on top of it. I'm able to be adaptive, right? That's exactly the starting mentality you need to have with your sales system. Yes, there's going to be specific steps you need to do, period. You're going to need to do them in that order. But the way that you go about them goes back to a word that you said before, which is so important. You're building a relationship.
Yes.
And that is really where it is different. You need to know the steps, obviously. But so many salespeople out there like to just swim on the surface because all the other boats are here. This is my benefits and features. Just right here. You can see what we're doing. What real salespeople that are successful are is, instead of just being on the surface of the water with that client, they dive into their ocean of their emotions. What is the client's emotion that's driving them? And this doesn't matter, by the way, for business to business sales. This is also applicable to you. Some people get that thought that it doesn't. It's only for business consumer. It's not, because there's a procurement officer that's an actual person
Yes.
that's approving this purchase. And is that person buying this for what reason? There's a billion options that range all the way from, if I do amazing and we start getting better, I'm going to get promoted, to I just don't want to get yelled at anymore. And this is office space on the other side of my phone right now. And
Wow.
unless you dive into that, you're never going to know what is actually driving this person. And by the way, the most common one is the guy's probably checked out and doesn't really put any effort into this thought process.
Yeah.
So do you really want to have your product on the whim of, eh?
Yeah.
Because in many cases, that's where a procurement officer's at.
Right.
And you have to think that through. Most people don't. Most people are so busy thinking about their own world. What do I say? What do I say? And it's never, What's the guy on the other side? How do I create a connection?
That's right. And I think right there, if you dive in, and I love you said the ocean of emotion, dude, you
Yeah.
need to use that. Um, because so many, like you said, everybody's at this top level. And if you show up just like everybody else, then you are, as I would say, like Charlie Brown's teacher, right? Wah, 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 wah. You're just like everybody else. But when you say, okay, Joe, I hear all that. Let me ask you a question. What are you really trying to solve here? What's this outcome look like? What's success look like down the road, a year, 2 years, five? What's going on there? Because you're probably the first person to ever ask a question like that. And you're
Mhm.
trying to dive in deep and understand, sit in their chair and realize, yeah, I mean, I think we can probably solve your problem, but I want to make sure we're a good fit. And that's when you start going deeper, more like a submarine than the ship. That's where everything starts to change. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give an example here, um, not to give the entire essence of my book away, but the most one-sided environment that every person knows on this planet for making money is a casino floor. The house
Mm,
always wins. You stay there long enough, you will lose everyone. Everyone knows that. In fact, going to Las Vegas is I didn't lose all my money. That's the most people's definition of a win. I literally took this approach there. What are the real problems going on with the dealers and
mhm.
who are the where I can make a relationship where it actually matters? And it very quickly became apparent that if you look at life through, in this case, my client's eyes, the dealers, it's a pretty bad life.
Mm,
First off, they don't have any control of who's coming into their world as far as the table. The casino requires the dealers to accept everyone, regardless of how they treat the dealer, regardless of their drunken status or anything like that. Then there's a pit boss hanging over their shoulder, criticizing the second they do anything wrong. And they're basically in a bubble where they can't control anything and it's all negative. So if you're in that space, eventually you would learn how to get rid of people you don't want. So that's what they do, which
yeah.
we can get into the math of that. That's not exactly essential to this. The point is, I was able to understand what their problem was. Now, granted, it was from watching, observing, and having conversations with them, which is what you need to do in sales. What is really your problem? What is your issue? And then we dove into some other variables, which I not necessarily for here,
Right.
but it ends up with every time I leave a casino, I got paid to be there. That person's seen the one ray of happiness he has in the last month in his job. And now when I come back, they can't wait for me to come back to pay me more. Is that not what every salesperson wants to be? And
Absolutely.
this all starts from emotions and a relationship and diving into spaces. But I got to tell you, man, part of the reason people don't do this is they're not even comfortable doing it with themselves.
Hmm.
And if you're with a guide who is uneasy, you're not following him into the woods.
Right.
And that is part of the big initial training that we do is getting people comfortable with their own emotions so they're comfortable swimming in those waters and being able to guide someone into, you're right. I don't normally have conversations about what buying iron ore actually means to me as the procurement officer. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen. So
Right.
now you have just planted an impression that made you different, positive, and meaningful in this procurement officer life that no one else is willing to do. And as a result, who do you think they're calling up?
That's right. Absolutely. You're top of mind. It's funny that example of you got to be comfortable. You're not going to be comfortable with a guide who's not comfortable. I skydived a couple times, and I had the guy on my back. I was chained to him, and before we ever went up, he was back in the parachute. I said, just curious, like, how many times have you done this? And he
Mhm.
said, well, about 5,000. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I was totally confident. But if he would have said, he's like, well, this is my second jump, I would have been like, yeah, I'm going to reschedule. But the same thing, if you don't have confidence in your abilities, in your product, in how you relate to people, if you're coming into that sales situation and you're fearful, anxious, or whatever, looking for the right words and trying to be a poser instead of a professional,
Mhm.
it kills everything. People are looking for I love you said a guide, right?
Mhm.
I tell people all the time, Joe. I say nobody wants to walk into a dark room that you've never been in before.
Mhm.
Your job is to guide them, hold them by the hand, say, I know where all the light switches are. I can tell you where the furniture is. Let's just walk and talk. I'll get you there.
Mhm.
That's what people are looking for. And you've got a process where you help. Let's talk a little bit about that. How do you work with business owners who really either they or their team are really struggling with this? Because I'm convinced, Joe, that if you learn how to sell properly, you can increase your closing ratio and drive more money to the bottom line without spending more money on advertising. You're probably
Oh
getting
yeah.
enough people. You're just not closing enough. And I know that's where you can really help business owners. So let's talk a bit about what's it even look like if somebody's like, well, not, how do you help
Well, like
people?
I said, so it's the entire revenue process you have to look at, from no one knows we exist to they have a desire to come and see us, to now they're with us, the sales portion we've been talking about here, all the way through post-sale and fulfillment. You have to analyze the entire chain and not look at them in silos as a starting point.
Mm,
So really what we do is we sit down and with a company and we do an audit of it. Where are we at? What is the process? And yeah, to a certain degree, it is increasing your closing ratios, but that's going to happen by default as you streamline the rest of it. We really do a lot of different things. We can come in because we specialize in the entire business, not just the sales. We can come in and leave your business with an entire culture that is permanent and effective forever. Really, at the end of the day, what our goal is to make it that your business will never fail. Now,
mm,
that doesn't necessarily mean that you want it to grow and scale. That's really up to the owner's choice. But we will make it so that it can't fail, because the number one thing that Elite Business Conversations wants to avoid is you closing the doors. Sometimes the issue is sales are wrong. Sometimes the issue is the owner spending too much of his lifetime or money in the business, and he just is getting to that point where I think I want to break up with it. But the answer to your question is we do a complete audit of the entire entity, and then basically just think of it using that boat example. We figure out where the holes are before we launch you out to sea. So some things are going to be working out great. We're not going to mess with them. Some things are going to be different, and that's just the way that it is. So the way that we do that is there. And then particularly in the realm of sales, because I get people asking me this about all the time, I do attack things in a revolutionary way. I know that. I also know that to get our professional services, there's a couple of limiting factors you have to already have. You have to have a business. All right, a lot of people just got eliminated from the category just by that sentence right there.
yeah.
So that's why I wrote the book. I give you a little bit of the sales system being tested in the hardest environment, casino sales master, proven system to beat the odds in sales and life. And there's a lot of life in there. I mean, you can't be talking about this relationship stuff and not involve life. So we wrote the book to make it accessible to anyone. And then for the next stage, if people want a self-guided tour, we made an entire video catalog training people for, I want to be able to implement this in my business, but I want to be able to one who's controlling these things. I get it. Some people want to have control of it. Some people, it's that stage of their life. That's what they want to do. Cool. So, and then that's all findable at casinosalesmaster.com, which is the name of the book. And then the actual consulting practice is at Elite Business Conversations.com.
Awesome. Awesome. I want to make sure we grab all those and get them in the show notes, because
Mhm.
I don't talk to a lot of people on my podcast around selling. And it's such a critical, well, I was going to say skill, which it is, but it's
It
a
is a skill.
mindset that you have to bring to it and realize it is one. I'm sitting here just noodling and typing things out. It's like, unsilo your business, because so many times we have the marketing department, we have the sales department, we have the production department. They need to be talking, they need to be on the same page. And really, you said this earlier, everybody in your company needs to have that sales mentality, from the person that opens answers the phone
Mhm.
to the person who your CPA or your bookkeeper who's writing the checks. It's all selling at some level, because it's all relationships with that customer. And how do we get them to come back, re-engage, solve their needs, stay in touch, build the relationship? When you do that, when you have that whole process that you talk about, when you understand it, and you're dare I say, fixing the holes in the boat. So you come and do the audit, you got a boat, but most business boats have holes in them.
Mhm.
Joe's going to come in and start patching those holes, and then giving you a system to convert more people and to build a team that's really a culture. uh, I, I don't want to say a sales mentality culture, but it's a service relationship mentality, right?
Yeah, so if you think of it, if using your boat analogy, what we really do is we rebuild the hull
Ooh, I
underneath it.
like that. I
So
like that.
that's we do it from the inside out there, but we make it floatable and successful on the way. Because most businesses that fail, going back to how great you've been in this conversation of setting pure definitions,
Yeah.
most businesses actually have created a job for the business owner rather than built the business. The difference is a business will keep making money without any ownership involved.
Yep.
If you don't have that, you have a glorified job.
Yep.
So, and do you really want that to be your case forever? So that is really the starting point when we're talking to a business owner of what we fix. And we go through the 4 funnels of it. Sales. That's the first one we've been
Yeah.
talking about this whole time. The second one is, how do you look at your culture and your employees? How do you motivate them? How do you discipline them? How do you incentivize them? We spent a lot, especially on that last one, incentivization. And since we're doing things different and we're not doing this the same old way, we're going to be training our managers different. And then obviously the relationship that the business owner has with the business, that relationship is the rain that is fueling this entity. So
Right.
are you watering it correctly? And how are you doing that? And that's really where if you look at the holistic answer, all 4 of those elements have to come into play to be done right for a business to be successful. And again, we're coming from the mentality that we're going to build a money-making machine for you. And yeah, some of my clients range from we make amazing bread to I have a cool online shop where I can do therapy for people, and I literally every industry
Yeah.
I have worked with, and it is fantastic. I've met people I've never even thought I would have. I met the world class, and sometimes when he's humble, he says top 3, but he's really the world class expert in saliva. Like I never thought I'd talk to the
Wow.
guy who figures out what your spit is, and it is amazing. In fact, he's going to be having a test that you're going to be able to spit into a jar essentially, and you'll know instantly if you have a concussion.
Wow.
Instantly. Yeah, it's insane. It's actually, yeah. So the whole process is, and this is my life. I get to talk to fun and fascinating people because people get involved in their business. They love it. They know the power of ghostwriting and how it's going to make your career
Wow.
better. They know all of this, and it's like you get to talk to them and make their lives better. It's so fantastic. So yes, we sales is certainly the element of it, but you have to have everyone going in the same direction and wanting to have it. And when done in total correctness, it needs to be front and present on them every day. And as people in the workforce, the number one way to do that is have it directly tied to compensation. Um,
Absolutely.
that right there is its own episode, but that's still a fact.
It is, but that's a good thing, really, because
Mhm.
well, we can go into that. So, all right, how do people take that next step? I'm sure this has just intrigued a bunch of people. Going, what? Where do they go to find more about you and your business, your process? How they could? What's the next step for most people?
Yeah, so really the answer is you go to if you want to learn more about me and see more content of mine, you just do that at Elite Business Conversations. We do video trainings all across the board. If you want the full super in-depth training courses, those are with the book at casinosalesmaster.com. And then obviously both of those connections have a way to get a hold of myself or either one of the other partners here at Elite Business Conversations.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. I will. We're gonna make sure all of those are in the show notes because this, honestly, when you're listening to this, you need to just go back and re-listen to it. This is game changing here. Don't stop chasing the next shiny object in marketing.
Mhm.
Stop. Get your business built so it can't fail and understand how to approach selling and marketing all that the right way to keep your boat afloat and let Joe help you and his team. So I'm going to capture those elitebusinessconversations.com, casinosalesmaster.com,
Mhm.
capture those so that people can get there. Reach out to Joe, have the conversation, look at what he's got to offer, get a copy of his book, and get you and your team on the right page so that you can grow your business and make it really a can't fail business that can happen without you there because you've got a solid team and a great path. Wow,
That's
Joe,
exactly.
man, this has
Yeah.
been quite fun and exciting. Thank you for your passion. It's rare for me to find somebody who has as much passion for what they do as I have for what I do. So kudos to you there. And just thanks for doing this for business and people and being my guest today, man. It's been a great conversation.
I greatly appreciate that. And like I said, I really hope that everyone takes the nugget from there. And if you don't take anything else, look at the way that you are identifying your ideal prospect. And it really will at least put you in starting point in the right direction rather than just wandering in the wind of the 1960s failure that we're living in all around us.
Amen, brother. Amen. Take that. Go back and listen to this and reach out to Joe, see how he can help you because I know that he can. Thanks for listening to Experts Speak. We'll be back next week with another great interview.